You know that feeling when you walk into a room expecting a standing ovation, but all you hear is the echo of your own footsteps. That is exactly the nightmare scenario that just unfolded for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle at one of the most prestigious events in Hollywood. We are talking about the Sundance Film Festival, a place where tickets are usually like gold dust, where lines wrap around city blocks, and where industry careers are made or broken in a single afternoon. The Duke and Duchess arrived with all the pomp and circumstance of A-list royalty, flashing designer smiles and posing for the cameras as if they had just produced the next Titanic. But once those heavy theater doors swung shut and the paparazzi flashes faded away, the reality inside was absolutely brutal. We are hearing reports of a humiliation so specific, so quantifiable, and so public that it threatens to shatter whatever is left of their Hollywood credibility. We aren't just talking about a lukewarm reception. We are talking about a room that was literally half empty. But the embarrassment didn't stop at the ticket sales. What happened during the screening and the shocking revelations that have come out in the last 48 hours prove that not only is the industry turning its back on them, but they might not have even watched the very film they were there to promote. It is a story of ego deception and a desperate scramble for relevance that has backfired in the most spectacular way possible. Let's paint the picture of what actually went down inside that theater, because the details are staggering. Tom Bower, the legendary royal author who has a knack for uncovering what the Sussex PR team wants buried, has dropped a bombshell that changes the entire narrative of their triumphant return. According to multiple sources who were physically present in the room when the lights dimmed for the premiere of Cookie Queens, there were approximately 150 empty seats staring back at them. To put that in perspective, Sundance isn't your local cinema on a Tuesday afternoon. This is a festival where people camp out in the snow for hours just to get a glimpse of an indie film. Theaters are supposed to be packed to the rafters, but for the Sussexes, it was a ghost town. The humiliation was apparently so palpable that festival organizers panicked. Sources claim that as the movie progressed, ushers and event staff were literally pushed into the theater to fill the empty rows, a desperate attempt to make the room look less embarrassing for the cameras. Imagine the scene staff members who were supposed to be working the doors are suddenly being used as seat fillers because the star power of Harry and Meghan couldn't put bodies in chairs. Even with that frantic effort, reports state there were still 60 to 70 empty seats by the time the credits rolled. It destroys the myth of their popularity in the US. If they can't fill a small screening room at an industry event, what does that say about their commercial viability? But the emptiness of the room was nothing compared to the emptiness of their actual involvement. This brings us to the next layer of this debacle, how this documentary even came to be. If you listen to Meghan's speech on stage, where she insisted on speaking before the actual director, a major breach of film festival protocol, by the way, you would think this was a passion project she had nurtured from the ground up. She spoke about layers and complexities using that signature word salad we have all come to recognize. But the timeline tells a completely different story. It turns out Harry and Meghan didn't create this film. They didn't direct it. They didn't even conceive the idea. Industry insiders have revealed that there are a staggering 24 executive producers listed on this project. 24. And guess who the last two were? Harry and Meghan. They reportedly bought their way onto the project in December 2024 when the film was already in the can. Hollywood speak for completely finished. They essentially slapped the Archewell sticker on a completed product, swooped in at the 11th hour, and tried to claim the glory on the red carpet. It is the classic attach, not build strategy. They acquire other people's hard work and try to pass it off as their own creative genius. But here is the kicker. Because they came in so late and because they were so focused on the photo ops, it appears they made a critical error. They didn't realize that the movie they put their names on creates a narrative that completely contradicts their own public values. Here is where things get dark, and frankly, quite bizarre. Meghan stood on that stage and gushed about the film, calling it one of the most powerful and meaningful depictions of American tradition. She described it as inspiring a beautiful look at girlhood. But attendees who actually sat through the movie, unlike seemingly the Duchess herself, walked away with a very different impression. The film, according to reviews and viewer reports, isn't a heartwarming story of cookies and campfires. It is an expose on exploitation. The documentary reportedly reveals a system where wealthy parents simply buy their daughter's success. It shows families fronting thousands of dollars to buy cookies in bulk just so their child can win a badge or a prize, effectively turning the Girl Scout experience into a pay-to-play scheme for the rich. It highlights children being coached to use guilt-tripping tactics, leveraging sympathy, and even playing up personal hardships to close a sale. This is what Meghan called empowering. It begs the question, did she even watch it, or did she just see the title? Cookie Queens, think it sounded cute, and sign the check. It is a level of negligence that is almost hard to believe, but it aligns perfectly with the criticism that they are all about surface-level optics and zero substance. They are promoting a film that exposes the very elitism and financial privilege they claim to fight against, and they don't even seem to realize it. Naturally, the backlash from the organization at the center of this has been swift and severe. You might assume that having a Duchess champion your cause would be a PR dream for the Girl Scouts, but reports indicate it is a nightmare. The organization is reportedly furious. They feel blindsided and exposed by a documentary that paints their business model in such a negative light. In fact, if you look closely at the film, there is a disclaimer in tiny letters at the start, stating that the Girl Scouts organization had absolutely no involvement in the production. They have distanced themselves completely. Yet there was Meghan acting like the unofficial ambassador, dragging the brand into a controversy they never asked for. And she didn't stop there. In her attempt to sound relatable, Meghan spun a yarn about her own time as a Girl Scout in California, reminiscing about selling cookies. But Tom Bower's research uncovered yet another inconsistency. Let's call it what it is, a lie. Meghan wasn't a Girl Scout. She was a brownie. Brownies are the younger cohort, usually ages 5 to 7, and crucially, they do not sell cookies. That is not part of their program. So the entire premise of her nostalgia was fabricated. It is these small, easily checkable falsehoods that chip away at their credibility. She seemingly cannot help but embellish her history to fit the moment, even when the truth is just a Google search away. So why this project? Why attach themselves to a documentary about cookie sales of all things, especially when it carries so much potential for backlash? The answer, as it often does with the Sussexes, may point back across the Atlantic. We have to look at the Catherine factor. Princess Catherine is the patron of the Girl Guides in the UK, the British equivalent of the Girl Scouts. She has held that role for years and is genuinely involved in their mission. Many royal commentators believe this was a calculated move by Meghan to encroach on Catherine's territory. It looks like an attempt to say, anything you can do, I can do better, and in Hollywood. It feels like a rivalry play, a desperate bid to set herself up as the American alternative to the Princess of Wales. But because the attempt was driven by ego rather than genuine interest or due diligence, it backfired. Instead of looking like a devoted patron of youth leadership, Meghan looks like an opportunist who didn't do her homework. She tried to upstage Catherine, but ended up promoting a film that makes the organization look predatory. It is a strategic failure that highlights the difference between the steadfast, quiet service of the Waleses and the chaotic headline-chasing approach of the Sussexes. The fallout from this Sundance disaster is already rippling through the industry. The most telling sign of failure isn't just the empty seats. It is the silence from the distributors. Sundance is a marketplace. You go there to sell your film to the highest bidder. But the buzz is that nobody wants to touch Cookie Queens. If Netflix wanted it, it wouldn't be at Sundance. It would already be on your homepage. The Sussexes have a deal with Netflix, yet the streaming giant reportedly took one look at this project and said, no thanks. In fact, the timing couldn't be worse. Netflix has just officially canceled With Love Meghan after one season, and they made a public announcement about it. They didn't let it quietly fade away. They wanted the world to know they were cutting ties. This signals a massive shift. The Sussex brand is no longer a golden ticket. It is being viewed as the kiss of death. Filmmakers and studios are realizing that attaching Harry and Meghan to a project doesn't bring prestige. It brings controversy, drama, and now failure. The real filmmakers behind Cookie Queens are reportedly regretting the partnership, realizing that the toxicity of the Sussex brand is overshadowing the actual work. They wanted a distribution deal. Instead, they got a PR nightmare and a theater full of seat fillers. But the disaster didn't stop inside the theater. While the seats remained stubbornly empty, a completely different reality was being manufactured online. This brings us to one of the most disturbing aspects of the Sussex operation, the digital gaslighting. While Tom Bauer and credible journalists were reporting on the 150 empty seats and the ushers being forced to act as seat fillers, the Sussex Squad, that nebulous group of die-hard digital fans, went into overdrive. Social media was suddenly flooded with claims that the screening was standing room only, that tickets were sold out, and that crowds were rioting to get in. It was a coordinated attempt to rewrite history in real time. They tried to claim that the empty seats were just a security measure, or that the photos were taken before the crowds arrived. But here is the undeniable truth that the data exposes Sundance theaters are small. They are intimate. When a film is a hit, people are sitting on the stairs. There are no security gaps of 150 seats in a 300-seat room. That isn't security. That is a flop. This disconnect between the online fantasy and the real-world failure is exactly why Hollywood executives are backing away. Studios rely on real data, not Twitter bots. When Netflix sees a sold-out claim online but looks at the actual box office receipts or attendance numbers and sees a void, they know they are being played. The Sussexes have spent so much time curating their online image that they seem to have forgotten that in the real world, you actually have to show up. You actually have to sell tickets. You cannot tweet your way to a box office hit, and Sundance just proved that the Squad has zero purchasing power when it comes to the real world. So why did the movie fail so hard? Beyond the controversy, was the film actually any good? The industry verdict is in, and it is brutal. The Hollywood Reporter, one of the most respected trade publications in the business, described the film with two words that are essentially a death sentence in the documentary world's saccharine suite. In Hollywood terms, saccharine means boring. It means fake. It means the film lacks conflict, tension, or grit. And this is where Meghan's influence likely destroyed the project. Real drama requires tension. It requires asking the hard questions, like why are parents going into debt for cookies? Why is a massive organization profiting off free child labor? But according to critics, Cookie Queens avoids all the hard stuff. It presents a sanitized, glossy, Instagram-filtered version of reality where everything is cute and perfect. The only narrative question in the film is, will these girls sell all their cookies? And the answer is immediately yes, because their parents buy them. End of story. There is no struggle. There is no payoff. Netflix executives are in the business of engagement, and they know that a movie with zero conflict is a movie that people turn off after 5 minutes. By trying to make the film safe and brand-friendly for herself, Meghan stripped it of the very thing that makes documentaries watchable: the truth. She turned a potential investigative piece into an hour-and-a-half-long commercial that nobody asked for. If the movie was boring, Meghan's behavior on the red carpet was anything but. In fact, it provided the most revealing moment of the entire festival. We have footage and eyewitness accounts of Meghan interacting with the very children she claims to be championing, and the body language tells a horrifying story. Sources on the ground reported that while Meghan was all smiles for the photographers, her attitude shifted the moment the cameras weren't directly on her. There were moments where she appeared to physically maneuver children out of her key lighting or position herself in front of them to ensure she was the center of the frame. One observer noted that she didn't seem interested in talking to the girls about their experiences. She was interested in the quick pose. It reinforces the criticism that she treats people, even children, as props in her own personal movie. These girls were there to celebrate their hard work, yet they became background extras in the Meghan Markle show. It is a cold, transactional way to operate, and it didn't go unnoticed. When you are supposedly the executive producer of a film about empowering girls, but you spend the premiere pushing those girls into the shadows so you can get a better solo shot, you aren't empowering anyone but yourself. It is a visual representation of the entire Sussex brand. Look at me. Don't look at the cause. As if the film failure wasn't enough, we have to talk about the elephant in the room that likely terrified potential distributors: the political fallout. The transcript alludes to a war between King Charles Prince William and the Sussexes over a rebuke involving Donald Trump. While they were playing producer at Sundance, reports surfaced that Harry and Meghan had waded into dangerous political waters, again openly criticizing political figures in a way that breaks every rule of royal neutrality. This is a massive liability for any studio. Hollywood is a business, and alienating half your potential audience or getting involved in diplomatic spats between the UK and the US is bad business. Prince William is reportedly furious, and rightfully so. The Sussexes are using their royal titles granted by the British monarchy to push a political agenda in an election year in America. It is a diplomatic nightmare. Distributors look at this and see a ticking time bomb. If they buy this seemingly innocent cookie movie, what happens next week when Harry insults a world leader or Meghan releases a political manifesto? They are unpredictable. They are volatile. And in the corporate world of heavy-hitter streaming services, volatility is a risk nobody wants to insure. This Trump rebuke story floating in the background was likely the final nail in the coffin for any distribution deal. They have become too hot to handle, not because they are popular, but because they are a liability. Finally, we have to connect these dots to the bigger picture of desperation. This Sundance appearance wasn't an isolated event. It is part of a pattern of crashing events where they clearly don't belong. Remember the Kevin Costner fundraiser for emergency workers. The transcript highlights this as a key signal of their decline. Meghan showed up reportedly uninvited, or at least unexpected, and tried to seize the microphone in a moment that made everyone cringe. Comparing that to Sundance, the pattern is identical. They insert themselves into legitimate events, charity fundraisers, film festivals, and try to make it about them. They don't generate their own events anymore. They piggyback on others. And just like at the Costner event, where she was basically ignored by the A-listers at Sundance, the industry gave them the cold shoulder. It is a tragedy of diminishing returns. 2 years ago, they were signing $100 million deals. Now they are crashing parties and premiering movies in half-empty theaters to silence. The trajectory is pointing straight down. They have gone from global icons to industry pariahs in record time. And as the Cookie Queen's disaster proves, no amount of PR spin, fake fan tweets, or rented designer gowns can hide the fact that the audience has simply walked away. What makes this entire spectacle so hard for the public to swallow is the blinding hypocrisy of it all. Just days before appearing on the red carpet, Prince Harry was in a London courtroom practically in tears, claiming that media intrusion has made his life a misery. He argued that he needs privacy, that the press is dangerous, and that he wants to protect his family from the limelight. And yet, less than a week later, he flies to Utah to walk a red carpet begging for cameras to turn his way. You cannot scream for privacy in a courtroom on Monday and then desperate for publicity at a film festival on Friday. It is this duality that has turned the public tide so fiercely against them. They want the perks of celebrity, the adoration, the flashes, the microphone, but they refuse to accept the scrutiny that comes with it. They want to control the narrative so tightly that they end up suffocating their own authenticity. The Sundance appearance was supposed to be a rebrand, a show of strength. Instead, it exposed them as dopes, to use the terminology floating around the industry. They are seen as out of touch, unprepared, and relentlessly chasing a spotlight that is rapidly dimming. As we look at the wreckage of this Sundance appearance, the reality for Harry and Meghan in 2026 is looking grim. They have alienated the royal family, they are losing their grip on Hollywood, and their financial safety nets are snapping one by one. If they cannot sell a movie about Girl Scouts, one of the most American of traditions, what can they sell? The empty seats in that theater are a metaphor for their current status, plenty of hype, but nobody is actually buying what they are selling. This wasn't just a bad premiere, it was a signal that the industry has moved on. The curiosity factor is gone. The victim narrative is played out. And now their attempt at being serious producers has been exposed as a sham. If this is how their year starts, one has to wonder if there will be anything left of the Sussex brand by December. But I want to hear from you. Do you think they can recover from this humiliation? Or is this the final nail in their Hollywood coffin? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and make sure you are subscribed because let's be honest with these two, the next drama is always just around the corner.